art can make or break a room. What role does art play, particularly in designing a space? Does art affect human behavior? What are the factors to consider when designing a space? All these questions will be answered. As I welcome you to Creative Lounge, my name is Ahmed Mohammed Bello, also known as the Duke of Abuja. With me today on this show is an interior designer who is the CEO of AD Designs. She goes by the name Anne Dirkling. You're welcome to Creative Lounge.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
You look very beautiful.
Thank you.
So, I know I can never do justice to introducing you. Can you just introduce yourself to us?
Yeah, as you rightly say, my name is Anne Dirkling.
Yeah.
Principal director and founder of AD Design Limited. It's an interior design outfit established now 2 years ago, based in Abuja. So we do residential as well as commercial designs. And it's pretty much been for me full circles. I always embraced arts and the creative industries all my life through different means. And I was always very much interested in interiors as well, in architecture. But it was not before I got myself involved in social enterprises in Nigeria that was promoting technical skills and worked a lot with artisans, tilers, carpenters, plumbers, and so on and so forth, that I noticed there is a massive niche actually in the market, that when it comes to interior design, it is yet not fully established as a profession in Nigeria, or many people call themselves interior designers and then pretty much just buying off a catalog and then put it in the house and call themselves interior designers. And I just noticed that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's a growing industry. The real estate is a growing industry. So I felt there's more to design than what I've seen in Nigerian homes. Okay. And so I just, took a leap around COVID period and then, redirected my path, so to say.
Okay. For how long have you been in this industry? For how long have you been doing this?
It's been 2 years now. 2 years. Yeah, I did 3 master classes because I didn't go to traditional interior design school, which I would recommend though for everyone because you need to have a background of what you're doing. But I, since my educational background was from a complete different access, I still felt I need to be equipped well to be able to defend my choices, even though I may have a certain gut instinct that sits right, and some people don't have that when they see an empty room. The walls don't speak to them, but there are signs and there are rules and there are regulations and codes involved, and then you just need to have that backed up. And so I felt, as much as I can just design my own spaces and friend spaces, if I want to take this up professionally, I need to have that backed up with certificates, so to feel more emboldened.
You seem to have a lot of experience and schooling. What does it take to become an interior designer? Does one need a trained eye or a special intuition to call yourself an interior designer? You need to be certified.
I don't think you need an intuition to be certified. For certification, surely we would enroll in a school and then you would, just like with any other profession or with any other skill, you go through certain training, and then once you pass this, you're certified. But I think with everything in life, if you want to do things well, it's beyond just the skills. It's about attitude. It's also about the passion that you should have for any trade that you embark on. And so I think a certain feel for design, a certain feel for colors, a certain feel for interplay of textures helps a lot, spatial understanding, and then clearly even interest in psychology to a large extent, because you do design spaces not for magazines, but for human beings to live there. And I think that's the big difference to the reality check and then what you see maybe in the media also, because a lot of pictures look nice on Instagram or on Pinterest, but from a minimalist perspective, for example, a lot of interiors look stark and nice and they look great on photos. But then when you think about, could I live in there? And how would I live in there? And how would my family actually interact? And how would a feeling of warmth, togetherness, things, values that are actually very important to make a house a home, interplay there? That's a different story. So, and a designer is supposed to be able to translate that into reality. So you do have to work very closely with the humans that you're designing the space for, even if it's for retail space, if it's commercial.
Okay.
Again, a brand has a certain image. You want to express a certain feeling for your customers when you come into a store.
Okay.
And all these things, are factors that you should consider when you're designing a space. Because eventually it's all about, for the end user, it's about function meeting aesthetics. But eventually, if you don't, in a home, if it doesn't function for you as a family, or doesn't function for you as an individual in this particular space that you find yourself in life right now, maybe you're a bachelor, maybe you just got married, there are different needs that a home should meet. And it should also be able to grow with you. That is another point. So a lot of times we do forget the future when we're designing. We just maybe welcome the first child into a home, and then you design, the toddler's room without considering that children grow up so fast, and you may get tired of certain colors very fast. So having more a neutral base that you can then spark with different elements that you can easily interchange would be actually even more cost effective, and would actually also serve the family more. So those are all the things that you consider, which, in essence, you only know when you are collaboratively working with the client. So when you really have a great understanding of how they live, how they want to live, not just for the outside world, but really, what are your habits? Are you really just Netflixing the whole week away? Is this your habit? Because then your home should actually support that, if this is what you do to relax, without any judgment. You have a lot of conversations with your clients, and they tell you how they live, or you see how they live. And so all these things need to be considered. And I think that's why a certain, a good understanding of human character and psychology is absolutely important for you to be a successful interior designer, I would say.
I know there are different kind of design styles. Can you tell us a bit more? I know minimalist. Just enlighten us a bit, the type of design styles.
Yeah, so I think we won't have an exhaustive list, because there are just so many nowadays, even so many different designs that blended into each other. But we can talk about 3 major categories.
Okay.
And that is, one is the traditional, and then you have the transitional, and you have the contemporary. So traditional is literally a mix of contemporary elements and traditional elements. And a lot of categories fall into the transitional line. So we can talk about coastal, we can talk about farmhouse 2.0, we can talk about Scandinavian, we can talk about mid-century modern. There are so many ones. It's more or less like a marriage of contemporary lines and traditional. Traditional, you have, really the old traditional Grand Millennial. You have, what we see a lot in the Nigerian homes who may have more money to express themselves, and then you see all of these gold ornaments. So traditional is richer. It's a lot of times richer in color, richer in details and architectural features and ornaments and things like that. While the contemporary is more subdued. It's more subtle on colors, it's more subtle on forms, it's more geometric shapes, it's more modular, also more restrained, minimalist, that's where it's coming from. But even now we have postmodern even in the contemporary line, which brings back those massive colors from the 70s and 80s. And, just like with fashion, interior designs, interior design styles evolve over time, and you merge them up. But we have so much. We have rustic, we have bohemian, even Afrocentric, something that you will see a lot here. There is a lot. And as I said, you can marry them as well together and merge them, but you should just always see that there is a certain form of balance, so that one is always the lead design style. If you even want to follow this 60-30-10 rule, you can do this. So 60% is the prominent design style, and then spiced up with something else that should be, though, in line with the first one. So, for example, what will not work is when design styles are too far away in history, in area. So it's very difficult for you to mix Victorian with postmodern. It just it clashes. There is no correspondence whatsoever. Whereas you could mix Victorian with coastal.
Okay.
When you think about the Hamptons, you can have very traditional houses, even beach houses there, with very nice traditional lines with chip black and different, different interior design elements. But then on a more modern, fresher color palette, with the light sandy tones and white tones and blue tones. So bring in that coastal element, but you still have architectural details and ornaments and stuff like this. So this one could work. Farmhouse, rustic, sure, it's a clear, it's a clear combination. There, as I said, and it's ever evolving, and I think that's the fun part about interior design. If you enter a house and it's just traditional, even in the maximalist way, that could be then interesting because you have a lot of explosion of colors through art, and literally your eyes keep wandering around, and that's very stimulating as well. But if you have, for example, which I've seen in Nigeria a lot, you have more traditional royal, they call it, royal furniture set, that is exactly what I just said, furniture set. So it's not a collected, curated space. It's pretty much buying off a set of a furniture house imported from Turkey, for example. And you have glam and glitz everywhere, and all is in the same color palette. And your walls, again, also have the same textures, the same colors, the same lines. Nothing really stands out. And that's another principle of design, which is contrast. If everything is the same, nothing does the talking.
So contrast is very important.
Contrast is important. I mean, there are many principles of design, but contrast is one of them that actually, creates that juxtaposition, that tension that you also want to see in fashion. And that's why a lot of times fashion and interior design is interrelated. So when you mix certain materials and textures together, it creates a form of tension. And if when you come into a house and everything is flat, because everything looks the same, I look to the left, I look to the right, and my eyes are not seeing anything new after 10 seconds, then it's not really sparking up anything. And I think that's why even if you have a minimalist space in terms of color, in terms of forms and shapes, texture can do the magic for you. Minimalist spaces may not, we may want to have a decluttered home. You don't want to have much things hanging around, which is fine. Everybody has different needs when it even comes to sentimental mementos that you want to have in your house. But if everything is just a gray box with gray boxy furniture and no other element that would actually speak to your soul and to your personality, then it will fall quite flat. So that's where textures, layering just of throw pillows, throw blankets, different accessories, art
can play an important role.
Absolutely. And so, for example, when it comes to art, you have a let's say a very sleek look. Let's say you have a ceramic tile, you have even maybe concrete walls. So everything is rather sleek and shiny. If you then choose art, I would advise.
I'm going to go to short. When we come back, we'll continue to go on a break shortly. And when we come back, we're going to continue from where we stopped. Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, this is Creative Lounge, and I am with Dirkling. We're talking about interior designs and how they affect human behavior. Just before we went on break, you were talking about how art and little accessories in the house can affect someone. I'm going to give you an example. My house, I have paintings all over the walls. I have paintings on the floors. Do you think that could affect the way I behave every day?
I mean, definitely there has an effect on you. Just the question is which effect, and it has strongly to do with your relationship to your art. So maybe not everyone could live the way you live, but for you, art means life. For you, that's a way of you expressing yourself.
Of course.
And so you be surrounded by art is absolutely important that your home tends to your personal needs. You most likely, as an artist yourself, you most likely strive on creative input and influence and being inspired by art, even past art that you have created. And maybe you would end up seeing more things in the same art piece on every single day. And so I think being constantly surrounded with something we love, it's absolutely key. For some others, it may be too busy. They may, miss that floor space. But I think for you, it definitely is stimulating and inspiring.
Yeah,
and I think also gratifying to a large extent, because you literally displaying your work. It shows your output. And so even if you were a sculptor and you have sculptures around you, you have certain memories connected to that very sculpture. When you did this, emotions you went through, what inspired even, the sculpture.
They're actually artworks that are very personal to me.
Absolutely. So I think it just makes you feel very grounded with yourself, because most likely those art pieces will show you part of your past, present, and can direct you as well to the future. And that ideally is what a house should do. Winston Churchill said, we shape our homes, and afterwards the homes shape us. And as when you're building homes, first we are putting in the work, but if we're not careful, the outcome will affect us positively or negatively. And so said art, if you're an art collector, this is something that's I think it's just, you couldn't live without these art pieces. Something would be absolutely missing, and you wouldn't you wouldn't feel that form of safety even.
If I didn't have it, yeah.
If you didn't have it, yeah, because it's your part, it's your rescue,
it's
so to
what
say,
I
your
live
resolve.
for, yeah.
Yes, that's what you live for. So I think that's why it will affect you absolutely, but then surely because you are drawn towards this, it will affect you in a positive way.
So a lot of people collect art. You have collectors, you have people who want to decorate their homes with art. But what role does art particularly play in designing a space? Apart from the decorative purpose, does it stimulate the mind? Does it affect mood? Does it affect vibration? Does it affect, how the happiness and, the gloominess of a person?
I think all of it, yeah. Okay. I mean, it depends again on the relationship that you have with art, but as an art collector, you have a strong affinity to art generally and to artistic expression. And you don't just collect arts by accident, unless they are gifted to you.
True.
But even if they're gifted to you, they then again have an emotional value because of the giver.
True.
Whoever gifted you this gift. But surely you choose artworks because they speak to you. And that's why then it's important as an interior designer to understand what artworks really have a sentimental value to you. What's the history behind it? So that will inform the decision also where in the house you would place them and how they could maybe interact with each other. But when it comes to even color palettes or even texture, whether it is maybe framed behind glass or whether it is a canvas that has texture, all these things play a role in relation to what else is in the home. And a lot of times we use art as just as an accent piece, but sometimes, and actually not too uncommon, sometimes you start designing a house around an art piece. So you meet a client and they want a complete new space, and I'll tell you, what is your inventory? What do you have? What is important to you? Okay. And they'll tell you, I actually don't have anything. I don't even want to use that bed any longer. But I have this art piece. It must be in the new house.
Okay.
And that already directs you to certain orientation, maybe to a certain area, to certain color stories, but as well to a certain emotion. And so that helps an interior designer as well to then make the front decision based on, because this piece has to have a focal point. So the emphasis has to be on that piece, somewhere where the homeowner sees it on a daily and really exudes joy from that.
Now there's something I want to ask you. As an interior designer, how much influence do you have, over a client when designing a space. Take, for example, I love plants a lot. And you're designing a space for me and you feel, for the kind of style you want to, express, I shouldn't have so many plants, but I think I should have a lot of plants. I want my house to look like a forest. How much influence do you have as an interior designer?
I mean, it's quite clear as a biophilic person you are. If you're telling me as an interior designer, I want my house to look like a forest, like a jungle, then that's the direction we're going to.
So what if it's not good for me? What if, based on your expertise, you think it's not good for me, for my mood or for the kind of person I am?
You're making a reference to plants, and plants, there is nothing bad about plants.
Okay.
Even there's nothing bad about too many plants. I mean, they purify the air. If you, for yourself, even need this for your emotional well-being, then this is your style.
What if, sorry to cut you short, what if you because as an interior designer, you're a psychologist.
Yeah.
You need to understand the psychology of your client. What if you think these plants are the factors that makes me depressed? Maybe I'm a depressed person, and you feel this is what constantly makes me depressed.
You cling to something that is not good for you eventually.
Yeah, and I'm clinging to it. How much, would you go by what I like or what you think is good for me?
As I said, there has to be a clear exchange of thoughts, but generally I am consulted because the client needs me for a certain reason. So I think when you bring an interior designer, you do acknowledge the fact that you can't just do it alone.
Okay.
So based on that and on the expertise I bring on board, clients should listen to an extent. But again, we are not dictators in what you're doing in your own space. We're just trying to translate your dreams into reality. Clients would maybe tell you how they want to feel in a space and how they want to use the space. They wouldn't know how to put it all together. So when it comes to the plants, for example, having something of living quality in the home is absolutely important. I would recommend this to every single client for every single project. You should have, even if it's just one, but you should have one plant in the room because it just adds that extra texture, it purifies the air. It just, that living quality is absolutely important. I would say that's even one must of every room to have something living. There's always something else called too much. We're finding ourselves right now in a cafe that, actually lives from that vibe and it fits perfectly. It may not be a living space for everyone, but I think there's always, it's a good way to just start with bring everything in. What do you want? What do you want? And then start editing. Look at the room again, start editing, taking things out and decluttering. So eventually you still end up with the aesthetic and the feel that you want, but without being overpowered, because plants are beautiful, but if plants actually affect your circulation in the room, how you move around, and you have constantly a cactus arm in your face, then perhaps you should be thinking about whether the plants actually more disrupt your freedom of expression in the room or actually aid your existence.
I'm going to go back to your personal life. In your journey so far, what has been your greatest experience?
I think the greatest experience eventually is just when, the joy in clients' face, especially when we have projects where we are able to take the client out of the house during install and they don't see things gradually coming together. We have large projects where this takes over half a year to bring things together, so the client may even live there already, so they see things gradually, and then sometimes it takes away the excitement because you've
seen it.
Yeah, you've seen it and you're going through it. So you see things come together, but it's not the same as when you sometimes. That's why I love sometimes smaller projects, but with big impact, because you are able, even during install, to take the clients out and then bring them in when everything is run. And the excitement, the joy that you feel, or that you see in your clients' faces, that they finally see it too. They finally see the vision, and that's exactly what they maybe anticipated, but they couldn't communicate it well. But then you hit the nail and get to hear later on that I really feel at peace at home right now. I feel I'm sleeping better, I'm more productive, I'm happier, I'm more balanced, like all these things that you should feel in a home.
Yeah.
If you could contribute to that, that's, for me, that's the biggest reward. Yeah. So, and I think that's also what keeps you going. So I think, I mean, with every art or with any profession, if a client is happy, that's at the end of the day the biggest compliment.
That's what's most important.
Yeah.
The client's
that's the biggest
happiness.
compliment. And so, that brings us back to, should you listen to your clients or should you just do whatever you want to do? It's all centered around the client. It's made for the client. It's made for this particular person, this particular family, this particular business outlet. It's not for you. I don't need to live in the spaces. So even if I would say later on, I couldn't live there, it doesn't matter. As long as it's a well-designed space, it may not be my own style, but if it works for the end user, then it's perfect.
Okay. I'm going to ask you last question now. What are those elements one should make sure he has, apart from plants? What are the must-haves one should have in a home?
I wouldn't answer this question with a certain set of furniture that I will now tick off.
Okay.
No. It's about, I would call it the 5 L's, because those are different elements that actually apply to every room. So I said one is living, something living.
Okay.
One is something loving. So something that is dear to you, something that you love, that, could be an artwork, could be a memento from your travels, could be a photo from your family. Just something that, makes you know you are at home. You're not in someone else's house. You're at home. This is something that intimately speaks to you. This is very important. Thirdly, layering.
Okay.
Any form, layering of textures, layering of colors, layering of lights. For a home not to be flat, what we just mentioned earlier, it's important to layer certain forms so that not all is rectangular, not all is round, not all is, gray, not all is beige, but that you just layer, even if it's just in different subtle hues and tones, but that there is dimension through the layering.
Okay.
Fourth, lighting.
Lighting
is so important. And it has such an amazing effect on mental well-being. And then lastly, I would say luster. Something shiny, something glass, something sophisticated, something luxury. You may not even be into that kind of glam person, but just something that is of a shiny, reflective element.
We're running out of time. This is how much you can take on today's episode of Creative Lounge. Thank you so much, Anne.
I
really enjoyed discussing with you.
Thank you.
You just heard what she said, the 5 L's.
5 L's.
Yeah, very important. Make sure your home is a place you could live, a place you feel very comfortable. This is how much you can take today. Join us same time, same station next week.